September 23rd, 2015. I'm Dana Durnford, also known as nuclearproctologist.org, and you can find my videos at Beautiful Girl by Dana on YouTube. And so here's a 30-second trailer before we get started. September 23rd. And so I'll just turn the gain down a little bit. I had to get a new microphone. I'm worn out, 6 weeks on the ocean. I'm grateful and humble, and so pleased that this is all over, and so pleased that we get an opportunity now, in my eyes anyway, to have a conversation, to have a debate, and to seek a better future for every generation ahead of us. And we couldn't have that without the information and the confirmation of the tidal pools of the coastline of British Columbia, of the bird species, of the insects, of the mammals, and the health of the entire coastline. And so a lot of people probably don't understand, because I've been on the ocean maybe 260 days in the last 365 days, and I used to blog literally 7 nights a week, 1 hour Fukushima blogs. And you know, we had 25,000 supporting documentations before I went on the ocean. We had done 9,000, I had done 9,000 headlines live on this channel. And I've had over 30 videos knocked down on my site a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago. I've been on the ocean for 6 weeks, and I covered that before I went on the ocean, each of the videos, and none of that slows me down or stops me. None of that sways me, because we had 25,000 supporting documentations, 5,000 pictures. The nuclear proctologist has around 2,000 of the pictures. You can download them usually underneath all of my videos. There's a link directly to TEPCO's website, and you can look at the reactors yourself. And so we've never seen a complete meltdown on the planet before until Fukushima. And Fukushima, I'll say hi to everybody in a minute. Fukushima is 100% meltdowns. Chernobyl was a 30% meltdown, a single reactor, and Chernobyl was a very small reactor, say 1/3 the size compared to any of the reactors in Fukushima in Japan at the Daiichi power plant. Now, Chernobyl stopped after 10 days. That's why they got a sarcophagus over it, if you want to call it that. A containment over it, they call it. I call it just a, show and tell. It's just the building is deteriorated. They have another one that's going to go over that one. And there's a Wigner effect about radiation. It's like a screwdriver you buy at the shop. It's not magnetized. But if you lay it on a battery, it's magnetized for the length of that lifespan of that screwdriver. And radiation does that to material. And so it's so hard to wrap your mind around what happens and why the tidal pools are so important to me, I'm sure. Because whales and porpoises and the mammals and animals and the fish, the salmon and tuna and everything else are way up the food chain. And so if you were going to look at damage from an ecological disaster, you would look at the bases of the food chain, you would look at the nursery of that food chain, you would look at the smallest animals. But you got to take into consideration what happened was that this was unprecedented. This is no different than an alien attack upon the planet. This is no different than a meteorite coming at our planet. And we flushed that out with 9,000 headlines, and I've 25,000 supporting documentations, and that's just originally. I've seen days here where we gathered up 500 more supporting documentations. And so the reason you have tourist laws and the reason you have nuclear holding sites, because you don't have a waste site. You can't. There is nowhere to contain this stuff, this nuclear material. It's not waste because it lasts for hundreds of thousands and millions of years and billions of years. And 97% of the reactor lasts billions of years. The uranium. And so when you take an element and you put it through a chain reaction, it's different than the original element. And so a banana, a potato chip, or walking in sunshine, and getting on an airplane, and dental x-rays have all been equated with man-made radiation. And I'm sure you can remember in the media saying you would get more radiation from getting on an airplane or a dental x-ray than you would from a nuclear accident. And they would say you get more radiation from a banana than you would from a nuclear accident, or more radiation from potato chips. They really do that all the time. They've been doing those same words, those same sentences for 70 years. And before I get off track here, I want you to think about the coastline of British Columbia in particular. So the coastline of British Columbia, right at the high tide line, the trees start right there. And so for most of the coastline, the only shore and rocks exposed are when the tide is low. And if not, then it's a stretch of the coastline 100 feet off the shore. From the tree line is the coastline itself. Because some areas are weathered that way. And so at low tide, the rocks that are exposed are vulnerable to the sunshine. And they have around 600 algae, kelps, that dominate that tidal zone. So when the sun goes down, there's 600 algae. And all the invertebrates, there's 6,500 of them, that we recognize as the indigenous population of the coastline. And there's around 4 million species in the ocean. So the species I talk about are the ones that are considered indigenous to the coastline of British Columbia and have been studied heavily by all the major institutions on the planet. Canada is the most privileged place on the planet, bar nothing on this planet. We don't lock our doors or our windows generally. We don't worry about getting pulled over. We don't worry about someone shooting you in the street. We don't shoot each other in the street, except for rare, and these are usually alcohol-fueled, rare occasions. Canada has always been a privilege. We have lots of water and lots of land, and we don't have a very big population, 34 million or something. And we have just as much land as America has. But I want you to understand why this is playing out the way it's playing out on our coastline. And now we've done this expedition. We've done up to 160 days on the ocean without coming ashore on the Fukushima's expeditions for life. And Elaine Campbell, and Janet and Fred Saxon, and so many other people, but those two in particular, every time this operation grinded or was about to grind to a halt, they stepped up and withdrew from themselves, enormous courage to fund this and make sure that it continued on. And so, that recognition, we can never forget how much of an importance that played. Because without that, we couldn't be what we're going to be and who we are. Without that absolute positive proof, and it's been argued that Dana, after 4 expeditions on the coastline, that I had enough to make a documentary, and I did. Absolutely, 100% had enough material to make a documentary. But I didn't have enough to make the whole documentary, to tell the whole story, because I didn't cover the entire coast. And so I couldn't tell you the Zabalis, or Gold River, or Tassis, or Winter Harbor, or Cape Scott, or the coastline, 460 miles of coastline, had this or that or anything else if I didn't go and see it. And so, but by doing what we've done the entire coast of Canada, 15,000 miles, over a whole year period, looking at the damage. But the one thing that I realized that I don't talk about is why the radiation impacted the coastline so heavily, and I just want to crawl through that as quick as I can. I'm just worn out. The boat, I got so much to do tomorrow and the next day, get my stuff off the boat and finish that up. And then unpack everything I got here. But every night from here on out that I can get up, I will be doing a live stream at 8 p.m. Pacific Canada time. And at the same time, I'll be producing a documentary and a book. And at the same time, I'll be setting up, as I get close to finishing those, travel plans to go out and push this, because it's not going to push itself.